I would say if you're keeping track of your formulas, you wanted to add to it yesterday. So on Thursday, we did the parabola and the circle, and then yesterday we added to it the ellipse. There are two different types for ellipse because there's vertical and horizontal, and there's with a center at 0, 0, and then there's a center at HK. My advice is, again, kind of like we did with the parabola, learn it with HK, because that one you can always use, and then you could just eliminate your HK when your center's at 0, 0. So if it's a horizontal ellipse, then it's x minus h squared over a squared plus y minus k squared over b squared equals 1. And if it's vertical, God bless you, then the order does not matter. Like, I could still do x minus h squared over the difference is that gets the b. So the a goes underneath the y if it's vertical. Order does not matter here. Both of those can be switched because it's addition. It can totally be switched. Okay. The most important thing is that a squared, the bigger base or denominator. And that is important, obviously, now, but it makes it even more important when we get into hyperbolas. If you remember hyperbolas, it changes to which one is first. So order does not matter with an ellipse. You're looking for the bigger denominator, okay? Then we also said HK would be our center. We said A is the distance from the center to the vertices. We said B is the distance from the center to the co-vertices. And we said C is the distance from the center to the foci. And then we said C squared equals A squared minus B squared. Major axis is 2A. Minor axis is 2B. You have to know all that stuff about ellipses. Questions on any of that before we actually dive in? Okay, so like parabolas and circles, you can either get given an equation and it will ask you to graph or find the information from it, or it could give you the information from it and it could ask you for the equation. So you're going to get questions in both directions. You will need to know how to graph a circle and a parabola and an ellipse for tomorrow's quiz. You'll need to know how to find the equation for each of those three, or get given information, find the graph or the equation. And you're going to complete the square. I think you have to complete the square twice. So either with the circle and the parabola, or the parabola and the ellipse, or two of those three, there will be a question that requires you to complete the square. So this question said, find the center, the vertices, the foci, and the eccentricity of the ellipse. The eccentricity is what we didn't talk about yesterday, so I took it off your quiz, okay? But we will talk about it today, but I took it off the quiz. Eccentricity is just how round something is. Like the flatter it is or the more round it is. That's all it is, okay? So if we're finding the center from this, remember the center is the opposite of what follows x, which would be 2, and the opposite of what follows y, which is -5. Be careful with the order there. Like your brain automatically goes to the x first, but the x is not always first. If those are switched, then you always have to make sure you switch them. Then tell me what you know about this ellipse. It's vertical because the y has the bigger denominator. Speaking of that bigger denominator, that's your a squared, right? Yeah. So a squared is 6, which makes a squared is 36, which makes a 6. B squared is 4, which makes b 2. If I was just graphing it without the foci, that's enough information to get you what you need. But your foci is C, so you have to find that either way. So I'm going to do C squared equals A squared minus B squared. C squared would equal 36 minus 4. C squared would equal 32. And C would equal the square root of 32, which then has to get simplified. So 32 can break down into 16 and 2, and 16 can be square rooted. This would be 4 square root 2. I need that because that's the distance from the center to the foci. Okay, now if you want to graph it, then I would say graph it because that helps a lot of people. For me, I like to graph these. If you want to do this in your head and you know the relationship between what you have to add to, that's okay too. So for example, if I didn't have my graph, I would know it's vertical, right? So with my, for my vertices and for my foci, I'd be changing the y. So I would take my center and I would add and subtract, for the vertices, I'd add and subtract a from the y. For the foci, I'd add and subtract, excuse me, c to the y. And then for the co-vertices, I would do b on the x. So if you want to do it that way, go ahead, do it that way. If you're a visual person and you want to graph it, then graph it. So I would start with my center at 2, -5. It's vertical, so I'm going up and down 6. So I'd go up 6. And that would be one of my vertices, 2, 1. I'd go down 6, so I'd be at -11. 2, -11, that's my other vertice. I'd go right and left B. We said B was 2, so I'd go to the right B, that's 4, -5. And go to the left B, 0, -5. And those are your co-vertices. And from there, I can actually draw my ellipse. And then the only thing we haven't drawn is the foci. The foci, I would be adding and subtracting 4√2 to the y. So when I write that answer, like it's going to give you a line for each of these. Vertices, blank. Co-vertices, blank. Like that. When I write the answers out, I would just keep it as, so my foci would be the y here plus and minus 4√2. So I would write that as 2, -5 plus and minus 4√2. But when I graph it, if I'm going to graph the foci, then I would approximate it, and I would approximate it from square root 32. Square root 32 is in between what two perfect squares? 25 and 36, which would be 6 and 5. You're both right. Right? So, and it's probably really kind of towards the middle, so we're approximating it. We could say that that's like a 5.5. So from my center, I'd go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5, which means it's closer. And then the same in the other direction, and those would be your foci.
And the foci have no relation to the vertices, right? Like they're...
The closer they are to the vertices, the skinnier your thing is. But, and that's what eccentricity does. But again, that's on the quiz. I'll get to that. Like, we'll go back and answer eccentricity after we finish the notes. Questions on that one? Yeah.
So when it says vertices, it means like the vertices and the co-vertices?
Correct. Vertices require, and I gave you a line for it, so it's not like it should be tricky. It says vertices, line, co-vertices, line, foci, line. Questions? All right, number 2 says find the standard form of the ellipse and then graph it. This time I gave you the vertices and the foci. So if my vertex is at 0, -8, and at 0, +8, what does that already tell you about this? It's vertical, which means which one gets the A? Y is over the A. What else do you know? Center's at 0, 0, halfway between these. What else do you know? Good. A is 8. So already you can do all your numerators and one of the fractions. I could say x squared plus y squared equals 1. Or I could say y squared plus x squared. Again, order doesn't matter. I do know that the a goes under the y. So this, the a squared. So this would go over 64. Without anything else, you know all that information. Now I know the foci, which tells me C. So if the foci is up and down 4, that tells you, 1, it confirms your vertical. 2, it tells you C is what?
4.
Good. And C squared equals A squared minus B squared. So 4 squared equals 8 squared minus B squared. 16 equals 64 minus B squared. Subtract the 64. Negative B squared equals negative 48. So B squared equals 48. And I'm not graphing B, so I actually don't need to know what B itself is. In the equation, it stays as B squared, so it stays as 48. Questions on that one? Breakfast of champions.
It's like this.
And iced tea and Oreo cookies.
It's a school week.
All right, number 3, find the standard form of the ellipse. This time you got the foci and the major axis length. So the foci is at negative 5, 0 and positive 5, 0. What does that tell you?
C equals 5.
C equals 5. It's horizontal, so what gets the A?
X.
The X gets the A. What else? There's one other thing you can get from there.
Center's at 0, 0.
Good. Center's halfway between. Center's at 0, 0.
And then the A is 7.
And, oh, well, yay. Then the second piece of information says the major axis length is 14. Major is 2A. So if 2A equals 14, then A is 7. And I got to find B. So C squared equals A squared minus B squared. C is 5. A is 7. 25 equals 49 minus B squared. Negative B squared equals negative 24. And B squared equals 24. So that,
Can you go back to the top?
mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So then the X gets the A, right? So X squared over A squared, which is 49, plus Y squared over B squared, 24, equals 1. Questions on that one? Because the foci is left and right of each other. So if they're horizontal, then the vertices are horizontal.
Eat real breakfast.
Foci and vertices are on the same axis.
And so it.
5 squared.
Oh, I got it.
Good?
Yeah.
All right, 4. Vertices 0, 2, and 8, 2. So 0, 2 goes up 2. 8, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 2. Good. It's horizontal, right?
Yeah. The center is not at 0, 0.
Center is not at 0, 0. It would be the midpoint of these. So if you're like accurate on your spacing, you could usually spot it. But if you are not, then you're using the midpoint formula. You're adding the 2 x's, dividing by 2, adding the 2 y's, dividing by 2. So my center's 4, 2. Okay? And because it's horizontal, which one gets the A?
X.
X gets the A. And what is the A? Good. The distance from our center to either of those vertices would be 4. So X gets the A. Then it says minor axis of length 2. What does that tell you?
I got the B is equal to 2.
2B would equal 2. So B would equal
1.
1. Good. So I have my center, I have my B. I don't need C to get the equation. So I don't even need that. Yeah. It's the midpoint between your 2 vertices. It's the midpoint between your 2 vertices. It's the midpoint between your 2 co-vertices. It's the midpoint between your 2 foci.
So what did you do with the 8 over 2? 4 over
So if you can't visually see the center, like maybe you're not accurate on your spacing or you don't have a graph paper, then you find the midpoint. Add the 2 x's, divide by 2. Add the 2 y's, divide by 2.
We don't need the foci for this one, right?
You don't need the foci for this one. So the X gets the A, but it'd be X minus 4, because it's X minus H squared. You need to sign out. Over the A, which is 4 squared, plus Y minus 2 squared, over the B, which is 1, but you don't need that 1. So if you left that 1 off, it's fine. If you include it, it's fine too. Questions? Last one. So we're going to review complete the square. Again, super important because you're going to do it twice on your quiz. Find the standard form of the equation, then find the center, the vertices, the foci, the eccentricity, and again, we'll come back to this because we'll wait on that, the graph of the ellipse. So it's not in standard form, God bless you. I'm going to group my x's together, 9x squared plus 36x. Group my y's together, God bless you, 4y squared minus 24y. Bump the 36 to the other side. Then what? Good, I gotta take them out. Take out the 9, it's x squared plus 4x. Take out the 4, it's y squared minus 6y. Still equal to negative 36. Questions so far? Okay, now I need to complete the square for each one. So I'm going to find what goes in the spaces. Take the 4, divide it by 2, square it. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 squared is 4. Add the 4 here. Before I add the 4 to the other side, though, I have to multiply it by the 9 that's on the front. So I'm adding 36. Repeat that process for the y. Take the 6, divided by 2, it's 3. 3 squared is 9. Add the 9. Before I add it to the other side, I have to multiply it by 4. So I'm adding another 36.
So you can get rid of the 9 and the 4 already since you already multiplied it by the other?
No, they're still there. Good question. They're still there. Only if we divided everything by them can you get rid of them. Yep. All right, so now the 9 is on the front. I'm going to factor these. Square root the first term, square root the last term, take the sign from the middle, put it in the parentheses and square it. Repeat that process. The 4 is still on the front. Square root the first one, square root the last one, take the sign from the middle, put it in parentheses and square it. And it equals negative 36 plus 36 cancels out, plus another 36. And then what does this have to equal? 1, so I'm going to divide everything by 36. And I get x plus 2 squared over 4 plus y minus 3 squared over 9 equals 1. There's the standard form. Now tell me what you know about this ellipse.
The center is at negative 2, 3.
Good. Center is negative 2, 3.
It's
It's
vertical.
good. It's vertical because the bigger base is under the y. And speaking of that bigger base, it'd be a squared equals 9. So a is 3. B squared is 4. So b is 2. Then I go to the graph. Negative 2, 3 is my center. It's vertical, so I'm changing the y for my vertices. So I'm going up and down 3. Up 3, and that coordinate point would be negative 2, 6. Down 3, and that coordinate point would be 0. Negative 2, 0. Negative 2, 0. And my b is 2. I'm going right and left that. Right 2, and that's 0, 3. Left 2, and that's negative 4, 3. These are my covertices. These are my vertices.
Do we need to graph the focus? Oh, yeah.
It don't matter. Okay, there's your ellipse. And then I got my center, I got my vertices, but I need my foci. So foci is c squared equals a squared minus b squared. C squared equals 9 minus 4. C squared is 5. So c is square root 5. Yep, a little bit bigger than 2. So I'm going up just past 2, plotting a point, going down just past 2, plotting a point. So when I plot it, it's an x estimate, right? But when I list it, again, you're going to get a line for each of these. When I list that, my foci, I changed the y. So I'm going to take the x and leave it alone. The x of my center was negative 2. That is left alone. But the 3, I add and subtract square root 5. So you keep it exact there. Anya, you had a question? Okay. It's okay. Questions? All right. We're gonna go eccentricity and then we'll go back to that last example. All right, eccentricity. Shh. Eccentricity of an ellipse indicates how oval it is. So it's like how skinny your oval is or how rounded your oval is, okay? And the variable that it uses is E, like it will say E equals, and literally it's just C over A. That's it. You take C, you put it over A. If you can simplify it, simplify it. If not, that's it. That's your answer, okay? And it is always in between 0 and 1, because if it's 0, then it means that, like 1, you can't have a C of 0. 2, if it's 1, that means it's a circle. And a circle cannot be an ellipse. Like an ellipse is different from a circle. The closer it is to 1, the flatter it is. The rounder it is. Sorry, more like a circle. The further it is, the flatter it is. That's basically the difference. It is just a value that can help you say, does my ellipse look like a circle? Then it should be close to 1, and if not, it's not. So a lot of the questions on the homework ask for it, like almost everyone, right? Had a little spot. You just do C over A. That's it, okay? C over A.
Like that last example, we probably have a higher one, right?
Yeah,
So it was almost
because it was square root 5 over, right? What was it? Square root 5 over
These are only
I don't know.
3, whatever it is. Yeah.
They're only for ellipses, right?
Ellipses.
I think it's square root
It
of
actually, you have it for hyperbolas, but not for parabolas. Okay, so like if you look at this. No, I was right the other way around. It is the smaller the E. I said it in my head, switched. The smaller the E, so the closer it is to 0, the more rounded it is. The closer it is to 1, the more flat out. It makes sense. The flatter it is, okay? Go to this question. So this was example 4, which came before it, okay? But we're going to add on, find E here, just so you can practice it, okay? So go all the way through with this guy. Put it into standard form, then graph it, find the center, find the vertices, the foci, all of it. So, again, you're completing exam. Sure. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is group together my x's and my y's, right? So 4x squared minus 8x plus y squared plus 4y. Bump the 8 to the other side. Take out the 4. So 4 comes out, x squared minus 2x plus the y squared plus 4y still equals 8. Now find what's missing. So take the 2, divide it by 2, square it. It's 1. I'm going to add 1 inside. Before I add it to the 8, you have to multiply it by the 4. So I'm adding 4. Repeat the process for the y's. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 squared is 4. Add it here and add it to the other side. Factor each of these. So 4 is on the front, square root first, square root last, sign from middle, put it in the parentheses and square it. Square root first, square root last, sign from the middle, put it in parentheses and square it. And 8 plus 8 is 16. It's got to equal 1. So we divide everything by 16. And I get x minus 1 squared over 4 plus y plus 2 squared over 16 equals 1. Now tell me what we know about this ellipse. It's vertical because the bigger base is under the y. That bigger base is 16. A squared is 16, so A is 4. What else do we know?
So
B is 2.
Good. B squared is 4, so B is 2.
the center is 1 negative 2.
Center is 1, negative 2. Okay. It asks for foci, so C squared equals A squared minus B squared. C squared would equal 16 minus 4, which is 12. Square root of 12, which becomes 2 root 3. Okay. Without your graph, if you wanted to change your center to find all the things, if it's vertical, I'd be taking my center and I'd be adding and subtracting A to get the vertices. I'd be adding and subtracting C to get the foci, and then I would take my X and add and subtract the B to get my co-vertices. But you have to graph it anyway, so you don't have to go through that process. I would start at my center, which is 1, negative 2. I would go up and down 4. Up 4 puts you at 1, 2. Down 4 puts you at negative 6. Or sorry, 1, negative 6. Those are your vertices. There's going to be a line for you to write. The vertices, you're going to put your 2 coordinate points. The co-vertices, I'm going to the right and left of B, which is 2. Right, 2, that's 3, negative 2. Left, 2, that's negative 1, negative 2. Those are your co-vertices. And that's enough information to graph your ellipse. Now, I did not make you graph your foci on your quiz, but you do need to give the coordinate points of them. So your foci would be square root 12, which we'd approximate to be in between 9 and 16, so in between 3 and 4 if I was to plot it. 1, 2, 3, somewhere in between there. But when I write it on my line, I'm adjusting the y's. So the x stays as 1. The y, which is negative 2, would add and subtract 2 root 3. How'd we do? Raise your hand if you got it right. All the way. Raise your hand if you got most of it right. Okay. What is E or eccentricity? C over A. So in this case, it would be 2 root 3 over 4, which becomes root 3 over 2. That's on homework, but again, not on quiz. Okay, on your quiz review. Okay. So the one question didn't have equals to 1. It's in the directions. Number 8 is missing the equals 1. Okay. And 10 gives you the eccentricity to answer the question. It's not going to give you that wording on tomorrow's quiz, but this means that your C over your A equals 4/5. So if you want to use that way, C is 4 and A is 5. It will give it to you in some other way tomorrow. Like it would give it to you like with your major axis, your foci, that kind of stuff. So that won't be on there. Your to-do list. All right. This is what you need to know from circles and parabolas.
Do we have this now?
No.
Are you gonna post it?
I can.
Thank you.
For me though, like writing it helps me remember. So if that's you too, you gotta know yourself well enough. So your circles, your standard form of your circle is x minus h plus squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. You're going to have to complete the square. You're going to have to be able to identify the center and the radius. You're going to get questions where I give you the center and the point. So everything that was on yesterday's warm-up is on this quiz. There was, I think, 6 questions on it. It is all on yesterday's video because remember yesterday was terrible Wi-Fi wise. So it is all on yesterday's video. But if it is on that, it is going to be on your quiz, okay? Listen carefully. This is what I would say is the most confusing part is when you are completing the square and you're completing the square for a circle. At the end, you do not divide by your r squared, but on an ellipse, it has to be equal to 1, so you do. So if it's a circle, let's just say it says, it's not going to say 3, but let's say it says 3x plus 3 squared plus 3x or y minus 1 squared equals 9. Let's say that's what it looks like at the end. If it's a circle, these will always be the same because that's how a circle works. So at the end, I would divide everything by 3, and they would go away, and my r squared is going to be 3, okay? If this is an ellipse, those numbers will not be the same, and you have to set it equal to 1. So the directions will say, complete the square, find the standard form of the circle. No, you're not dividing by what's on the other side. You're dividing by the coefficients. Or it will say complete the square and identify the parts of the ellipse. No, that has to be equal to 1. Does that make sense? To me, those are confusing because they're very similar. Okay. Then you got to parabola. And parabola, there was 2 different types, vertical and horizontal. Remember, if it's vertical, the y is squared. If it's horizontal, the x is squared. The squared is always on the side by itself. So if it's horizontal, then, which means it points to the right or points to the left, okay? Then it's y minus k squared equals 4p x minus h. If it's vertical, meaning it points up or it points down, then it's x minus h squared equals 4p y minus k. For both, your vertex is hk. For both, p is the distance from the vertex to the directrix or the vertex to the focus. If it's vertical, you're going to go up and down P to find your focus and your directrix. If it's horizontal, you're going to go right and left P to find your focus and your directrix. Your focus is a coordinate point. At the end, it's going to look like an XY. Your directrix is a line. At the end, it's going to be an X equals. If it's horizontal, it's going to be a Y equals if it's vertical. You might also have to, so you're going to complete the square twice. Either circle and parabola, parabola and ellipse, or circle and ellipse. You're going to do it twice. You could be asked to complete the square on this one Find the equation and then graph. Remember, if it's a y squared with a positive p, it points to the right. Y squared negative p points to the left. X squared positive p goes up, and x squared negative p goes down. Questions on parabolas? You have to do this quiz review. So if you didn't do your homework from last night, you've got double duty tonight because you have to do the ellipse stuff and you have to do the quiz review. At least if you didn't do the homework from last night and you're doing the ellipse, then you have to go back and do at least the circle and parabola from your quiz review. Obviously, the ellipse should overlap with your homework, but the circle and parabola is not on, obviously, 9-2's homework. This is over at the beginning of class, but I'll post this on your quiz review, okay, on your quiz review assignment.